if
But
individuals keep burning out, then we're always going to be firefighting. But if you were to be paid for the work that you do, how would that change your situation? What would you do differently?
yeah, I mean, I think we spoke about this a bit last time, but it would, I think one part of it, so there's multiple parts. Like one, it's definitely like a, you know, a reminder that it's motivation. It's motivating,
Hmm.
like as like a reminder that people do care
Hmm.
about the work you're doing, and and it gives you a reason as well,
Yeah.
beyond just loving the ecosystem or project itself.
Hmm.
Um, I also think the thing that's pretty interesting about just sponsorship relationships or donation is just having a direct relationship,
Hmm.
right? Like for example, like if that developer knew that like Canva was using their project, like establishing that relationship, I think is really powerful
Hmm.
versus what happens now, which someone makes an issue and I don't really know if they work at a company or not, or like
Yeah.
any contacts. I have no way to contact them. I think uh, having that relationship would be pretty cool and motivating.
And would you do things differently? Like, say, for example, Sentry and SourceGraph are sponsors. Um,
Yeah.
if you saw a PR come through, would you do things differently? Or, like, how would you, how would that change the way that you work?
Uh, I mean, I think I would just prioritize it more,
Yeah.
just understanding that I'm being like, right now it's all goodwill,
Yeah.
so it's like I treat it as such. When I have it, I use, but I think and I try like generally carve out like 1 to 2 hours a week. But, sometimes I'm busy and I can't.
Yeah.
And so I think, um, if I was being paid, I think there's even more of a incentive, or it just feel a bit more official in terms of like how I make sure I spend time on that and like more active. Um, you know,
And then, like, when I shared with you the Sparkmagic spreadsheet of all the PR issues and the
yeah.
people that we'd reached out to and the responses that we got, what was your take from that? How did, like, I'd love to know the thought process of, it's like, is it
Yeah.
cool? Is it, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I think it's super cool. I mean, I knew some of those
Hmm.
companies, but not all. It made sense that someone from Databricks was on there,
Yeah.
because you know their kernel's like very related.
Hmm.
So, and I'm sure they have customers that are either migrating off or whatever. But I think it's super cool, and like motivating
Hmm.
to see that. It's also, I think, goes back to what I was saying about, I wish there was more of a direct relationship, understanding like, there was someone, even just having a point of contact at one of those companies, that if they are using Sparkmagic, like how can I get in touch with them, like understand their requests, or like, get some context beyond GitHub issues,
Hmm.
would be pretty cool. It's also overwhelming.
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of pressure when you have a lot, like that many people depending on you, and you're just doing this for fun.
By you connecting with the industry, how would that impact the product roadmap or the way that you work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it specifically. That I
Hmm.
think like that's why I think the relationship is so important. Is, obviously there's the additional incentive, but for actually road mapping, like like a big thing with Spark Magic that's really hard is there are a lot of people that use it and a lot of different opinions.
Yeah.
Um, and so, as a maintainer, my goal is generally to like reject anything that's like too far off,
Yeah.
and just try keep it as simple while supporting things that people want. But it's a really like kind of thumb in the air type approach, versus like actually, like in product management and any other process where you're talking to your customers and you're figuring out what they want, and like where different, like, if I could talk to like multiple different people and be like, oh, these 3 companies that are heavy users all want this feature, then
Hmm.
I will prioritize it. Versus now there's some signal in, the issues, but it's much harder to parse.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
I noticed, analyzing some of the issues that you
Yeah.
had, the PRs that have been raised, there's a lot of support requests coming through as well.
Yes.
How,
Yes, a
well,
ton.
on on one side, there's
Yeah.
company employees waiting to figure out how to configure this to get it
Yeah.
working. But then on your side, you're like, oh, how do you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the issues when I know it's like clearly not Sparkmagic, I often just comment that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's again like Sparkmagic's really complicated in that it's a small piece of a very complex infrastructure.
Hmm.
And so generally when you are installing Sparkmagic, you are touching like, you know, AWS EMR maybe, or maybe running Spark and Kubernetes. There's just so many places where things can break,
Yeah.
and developers often don't know where. And so, you know, it is natural to go and be like, hey, I have this issue. Like, is this like here? You know, we don't have a dedicated Slack or Discord or anything like that. So, I guess it's a natural thing, but it's also like, you know, it's I can't help you. It's
Sorry.
like, yeah. I mean, it's really hard to debug someone else's infrastructure without any context. Versus like one of the other projects, like customized SOPs, KSOPs,
Yeah.
very, very simple plugin, like very straightforward what it does. And so when people post their issues there, I like know within a very reasonable range of like how I can help or like where the issue is. And I'm a bit more responsive about like directly helping people debug it, because I can ask like one or two questions and get to the root of it. Versus Spark Magic, there's so many unknowns.